All right, this is lesson 1.2, the African continent, a varied landscape. The learning objective is describe the geographic features of the African continent. The operative word here is varied. Africa is not all one thing, one environment, habitat, or biome. There's a lot of different things going on here, which we should keep in mind as we work to clear up any misconceptions about the continent of Africa or the people who are descended from it. So this is Africa. On the west, Africa is bordered by the Atlantic Ocean. On the east, it's bordered by the Indian Ocean. The Indian Ocean is called that because India is over here. India is part of Asia, the world's largest continent, and Africa is separated from Asia by this body of water known as the Red Sea. Africa is also bounded on the north by the Mediterranean Sea, which separates the continent of Africa from Europe. The boundary between Europe and Asia is roughly about right here. And everything on this side of the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea is Africa. Because it's bounded by seas on all of these sides, Africa was frequently visited by traders from all over the world. Traders from Europe would dock in ports in North Africa, including Egypt. Traders from the Middle East would sail along the coast of the Red Sea and the Horn of Africa here. And Africa's east coast was also a common destination for traders from as far away as India or even China, which is further east in Asia and not visible on this map. The point is that Africa was an important center of world global trade and was visited by many people to buy many different kinds of goods. Africa is home to a number of major rivers. These are the four we're going to learn about today, starting with the Nile River, which is the world's longest river and famously supported the ancient African civilization of Egypt. There's also the Niger River in West Africa, which supported a number of important medieval trading empires. Further south, you have the Congo River, which runs through the rainforest of the same name, and the Zambezi River, which supported the civilization of Great Zimbabwe. Just like the seas surrounding it, these rivers make travel faster and transportation of goods faster and easier, allowing for trade within the continent of Africa. As a general rule, it's almost always easier in ancient and medieval times to transport goods on ships by sea or river as opposed to lugging them over land. So this created the opportunity for Africans to transport and trade goods over long distances within the continent as well as with civilizations from outside of Africa. Thanks to the fresh water provided by these major rivers, there were civilizations all over the continent of Africa, going back thousands of years to the earliest Egyptians, but they also include medieval empires in West Africa that grew rich on the trans-Saharan trades, cultures like the Beninese, which created beautiful works of art closer to the rainforests, and Great Zimbabwe, which left evidence of large-scale buildings, as well as the Kushites, Egypt's southern neighbors, who created a number of magnificent artifacts as well. These are only a few of many, many different civilizations that have flourished and thrived on the continent of Africa over the last 4,000 years. As diverse as these civilizations were, the habitats, biomes, environments within Africa are equally diverse, ranging from large, dry deserts such as the Sahara, which is the world's largest desert and is located in North Africa, to semi-arid deserts such as the Kalahari Desert, which is at the southern tip of Africa. The Kalahari Desert isn't a true desert. As you can see, there is some brush, scrubland, various types of vegetation. So it is more of a semi-arid region. These are the two most arid, desert-like regions in Africa. In the center of the continent, where the equator runs through, right about here, we have our lushest and most humid environment, which is what's known as the Congo rainforest. This is a fairly dense rainforest, although it has supported human cultures over thousands of years, and it bears the same name as the river that runs through it, the Congo. Between the rainforest and the deserts are areas known as savannas or grasslands. They are home to a tremendous diversity of wildlife, including lions, giraffes, zebras, and most other animals that you would see on a television nature documentary. They support grass, which allows herds of wildebeest and gazelles to graze, as well as the predators that prey on those herds. A tremendous diversity of wildlife can be found in the large savannas of the southern part of the continent, and you can see the same thing in the northern part between the dark green of the rainforest and the tan of the desert. You have these savannas, which are large grasslands. Between the savanna and the desert is a semi arid region known as the Sahel. The Sahel is right where the Sahara Desert gives way to the grasslands. And again, it is semi arid. It can support some vegetation, but not too much. It is the Arabic word for shore, which reflects the idea that the Sahara Desert was kind of like an ocean of sand. And by the time you reached this area, you were nearing the shore of the civilizations that would be found across the desert. A great variety of crops and livestock were also cultivated at various places within Africa. In the Sahel, raising cattle was common. There are some parts of Africa where cattle cannot be raised due to the abundance of tsetse flies, which spread a disease that is lethal to cattle. But there was cattle production in the Sahel, and this was an important part of their agricultural economy. Further south, where cattle were not able to be raised, grain crops like wheat were very common. African farmers were able to cultivate these things throughout the continent and provide for themselves. In the rainforest and humid regions, people would plant yams, which are similar to sweet potatoes, as well as cola nuts, which are used to flavor beverages that have the word cola in their name, such as Pepsi Cola and Coca Cola. Those are named after the cola nut, which was used as a flavoring agent in those beverages. There's also a good deal of mineral deposits throughout Africa, including rare earth metals like cobalt, but in earlier periods of history, the most important were salt and gold. And there are salt and gold throughout the African continent, which attracted traders from the Mediterranean and Middle Eastern worlds, especially Arab Muslim traders who would use caravans of camels to cross the wide Sahara Desert in search of these valuable materials, which they would buy cheaply where they were abundant and then sell at a higher profit in places along the Mediterranean coast and in the Middle East where they were very rare. This trade supported a number of African civilizations and enriched people, especially in this area of the Niger River. And that's going to be one of the topics we cover in our next lesson. And that's about it for the diversity of the African continent. As you can see, a number of different types of environments, a lot of different animals and wildlife, livestock, crops that were grown, and a great variety of natural resources as well.